So central contracts for players are a hot topic at the moment, with English rugby in a bit of a weird place, with results going from exceptional to horrifying. And now with the recent autumn international results, the England fan base is still unsure where this England team stands. And as both pundits and English fans wonder whether central contracts could save England from another World Cup where they underperform, I shall be the light in the darkness and show the way for English rugby to go, and answer the simple question: should England rugby turn to central contracts? So to answer this question, you must first know where England rugby stands and the current system that it has in place for its players' contracts. And this system has been the same since 1995, when rugby first turned professional. So this is the current player pathway for becoming an England international. Young players come through the 14 regional academies that are run by their respective clubs, like Saracens, Wasps and London Irish, etc. And if the player graduates through that academy, they are signed by that club on a senior academy contract. If he's good enough, he's signed on a first team contract for considerably more money and is then available to be selected for his country, in this case, England. Now the benefits of that system are that players automatically build up a bit of loyalty towards their clubs that they come up in. Like, I still support Wasps despite what they've done to me. Go see other videos for more info. But this does mean that players tend to stay in the Premiership for most of their careers, and this has meant that club rugby in this country is up there with the strongest in the world, both in its competitive nature, but also the financial side, with all the international star players playing for their clubs week in and week out. And thus crowds at Premiership games tend to, in general, fill out the stadiums, and when they have special games at Twickenham and other stadiums as such, they do pretty well for crowd numbers. This has created a great environment for creating players who are driven by the same things their clubs are, winning at all costs. In a constantly competitive league that people generally give a crap about who wins, and where people finish, with the constant threat of relegation, which has been especially thrilling this year as Bristol have come up and been very competitive, and it's generally going to be more interesting to see who goes down this year than who's in the top four. And for the most part, this is how it is every year, except for that year London Welsh came up. Sorry. And young players growing up in this environment has recently bared fruit, as England have started to bridge the gap between themselves and the Southern Hemisphere nations at the Under-20 Championship, where England have been winners 3 times or been a finalist every year since 2011, except for that one time in 2012 where we finished 7th, and let's move on from that. But the point I was making is that the regional academy system feeding into our clubs who are playing a brand of rugby that is focused on winning has its merits. However, this system has been great for club rugby. Since the World Cup in 2007, which we were extremely lucky to get to the final in that, we haven't got past the quarterfinals. And when we hosted the tournament in 2015, we didn't even make it out the group stage. So, you're probably thinking, clearly this system has some hidden drawbacks which need to be addressed and amended. Well, yes, but I feel like a lot of those can't be avoided in modern rugby because of clubs not being owned by the RFU, and all the other things are pretty boring. But there is one glaring flaw in the system that has been exposed in modern times, and it all revolves around player management. The players are playing in an exhausting league due to the mental and physical stresses that are out of control, and international rugby is just an afterthought. Now, bearing that in mind, let's look at the alternative systems that other countries use.
Central contract.
Now, remember when I said that rugby went professional in 1996 and the RFU chose the system of privatisation and having their players stick with their club? So another country decided to keep the ownership of their players at the expense of having the opportunity to have rich benefactors come in and pump loads of money into the game, which both England and France decided to do. They would instead maintain the ability to have full control of the best players in their country, and it worked pretty well, as that country was New Zealand. Now, the basic benefit of having players centrally contract to you is that you control when they play. So for instance, if you want to give Richie McCaw or Dan Carter a year off before the World Cup madness begins, you can. Or even recently, if you want to give Ben Smith some time off to heal from his concussion problems before the Lions come over to New Zealand, you can. And that's what I mean by player management. Players are automatically taken care of and can be rested or played as much as you need them to be to get the best results for your country. And that's another benefit. No longer is international rugby an afterthought. It is the main attraction. It is the base of your success. And other countries have embraced this philosophy in recent years, including Wales in 2014 and Ireland in 2006. And if we look at the IRB World Ranking, the top 3 is... oh, would you look at that? It's almost like there's a correlation between the two. And if you want further proof that central contracts work, let's look at the team who have stuck with the same method as the English. Oh look, it's France, and look where they are. Look! In all seriousness, this success does come at a price. I am always surprised when I watch Southern Hemisphere rugby and there is no one in the crowd. It's always had me perplexed, especially in New Zealand, where I'm like, you have some of the best players in the world playing for your teams, like the Hurricanes, and no one's watching. And I realised recently, it's because since the game has turned professional in 1996, New Zealand rugby fandom has almost been conditioned to not care about anything but the All Black, and maybe the Crusaders, because everything is geared towards the All Blacks and their success, and people become fans of just international rugby, which is a massive danger to a sport if it's not the national sport, like in New Zealand. Ireland have managed to handle this extremely well though in recent times, by having having the centrally contracted players only play in the big games. For example, the Champions Cup and Pro 14 games that aren't against Zebra or Teresa. And it's working well and has allowed them to also maintain their brand in Europe and have success internationally. But on the other side of the coin, you have teams in Wales who don't necessarily have the star power to bring in the crowds, and club rugby over there in general is on a bit of a decline despite their recent international success. So what should England do? Well, to me it's about what you value and what success is worth. If England seriously want to win a World Cup in 2022, they need central contracts now. But is it worth risking and sacrificing one of the most vibrant and competitive leagues in the world, as well as the rich history of club rugby in England, for World Cup glory? I know what the smart and right answer is, but it is a tad sad, and I feel like this decision will either be sped up or delayed depending on how England do at the World Cup, and it will be an end of an era either way. If you enjoyed this, please like, share and subscribe. Trying to hit 1,000 subscribers, so yeah, thank you very much for watching and see you later.